impact on her.
Oh, is it 7? No, it's a little early, but okay.
3 minutes early, yeah. The characters that impact on her, the family.
I'm gonna let everybody know, the ones who are starting recording, so. I know, but I think that's where I think it's going to be a very interesting discussion.
Oh, I hope so.
Yeah.
It's a film that invites a discussion, and
I
I'm
think
hoping
so.
that that's where we
think
go.
so. Yeah.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, Linda.
Hi, Linda.
Everybody have good holidays?
Yes, thank
Yeah.
you.
No complaints. Did you?
I was in Houston, yep.
Oh, nice. Nice.
Passover on the Prairie, Houston.
It's not such a prairie anymore.
Yeah, I know. Hi, Marilyn and Mel.
I still love Florida, though.
Yeah. Although April is a beautiful month here.
Yeah, it was very dreary and cloudy and sprinkling for most of the time I was there. We had 2 very pretty days, and that was it. It's nicer here.
In April. As we get.
Ask
further
me
into
about
the
August.
summer.
August and September.
Exactly. So you take, we're in April, you got to enjoy what we have when we have it.
It's been dry lately, not so humid.
I love it.
Me too.
Mm.
Oops.
Yeah.
Well.
I took that boosted today and I can't move my arm.
Really, I took it Monday and I had 0 reaction.
Oh,
Absolutely.
I got really sick after the second Moderna.
Oh, I have Pfizer. I don't think it makes a difference. I really don't.
I've had reactions with each one with the arm.
Well, there you go. Yeah, I suppose. Well, it's 7 o'clock. We aim to start on time, so I will. And people will just be coming in as they come in. So once again, it is my pleasure. I'm Marilyn London, membership chairman and board member of the Friends of the Sterling Road Library. And once again, it's my pleasure to welcome you to another wonderful program sponsored by the Friends of the Sterling Road Library. And I thank all of you friends for your loyal support. And it is because of you that we are able to make this happen for us. If we have any guests tonight or people who are not friends, I suggest that you might want to become friends of the Sterling Road Library and join us. Check us out at www.sterlingfriends.org. And I know Jackie's in here somewhere, and to quote her, which I always do, for $10, it is the biggest bargain in town. Tonight alone, you've more than made up for it. So please join us so that we can continue to have people like Shelly lecturing to us. Check out your newsletters, all of our members. It is really important that you do. I am not going to go through the programs as to what our highlights are because you're already reading them. We have next week is a jam-packed week. I think there's something absolutely every day. And now that we're opening and transitioning, we will be having afternoon programs in the library, and our Zoom programs are staying on Zoom in the evening. So you will have double, and please check out the newsletters to see exactly what and when our programs are. In addition to that, I want you to also please pay very close attention to our 10 days of connection, May 1 to May 10. This is, I don't know how many years we've been doing this for lots of years now, right, Julie? And it is a fabulous way that we connect with other counties, other organizations, and we bring wonderful programs to you, and we offer wonderful programs to others. So again, please check out the newsletter and make sure that you register for any programs where they ask you to register. And for the in programs at our library, just show up. If you're not getting your newsletters, and this is important, if you're not getting them for any reason, please let me know. Send me a message in the chat. I'll get in touch with you, and or contact them, send us an email, Hannah, Julie, we will get back to you and we will correct it so that you get your emails and you will know exactly what's going on. Also, when you get your newsletter, you will also see wherever we start a check, when we tell you about what's going on at Cafe Cinematheque, you get Shelly's wonderful bio. So I'm not going to repeat that because either you've heard it or you've seen it or you've read it. All I could say is he definitely is a knowledgeable expert in critiquing and analyzing these foreign films, and he has a huge following. And how lucky are we that we remain on your busy schedule, Shelly. So one other thing, he is going to continue through the summer. Check the newsletter, get your dates and get the films, and join us there. Joyce is going to be putting his contact information in the chat. So look in the chat and get in touch with him to find out, in addition to what he offers to us, he offers many different places, FAU, FIU, LLI, go on and on and on, and also his seminar at sea. And I know, Shelly, that one or several of the friends have already signed up for your December 3rd celebrity cruise and are definitely looking forward to it. So if you are wanting to do something exciting for yourself, check that out as well. You are in for a treat. Is there anybody who has anything they want to add about the Friends before we leave that? Linda?
I have a question. Does the person that's joining, can they be from another state if they pay?
Oh my gosh, Linda, since COVID, we have friends from Toronto, Connecticut, New Jersey.
Okay, a friend of mine is interested from California. Okay.
Well, that's a different time zone, so that
I
might
know,
be a bit
she knows. So it'll be 3 o'clock or whatever.
But it's amazing where I'm sending membership cards to. I mean,
good. I'll tell her.
Great question. Thank you.
Okay.
Julie?
I just wanted to tell everybody that we have another piece of good news, and that's that this Sunday, starting this Sunday, our library will begin its Sunday hours from 10 to 6. And that's very exciting because now we will have our one day during the week, a weekend rather, that we're open to the public. So please tell all your friends and everybody you know in the community to come see us at the library on Sundays.
Yeah, thank you, Julie. Anything else? Okay, so tonight we will be discussing Honeyland, which I just said to Shelly as I was watching it. I felt like it was almost a little bit like an Alice in Wonderland to me, because they were so many levels and layers in this movie, both from like the basic to not so basic. So I am absolutely looking forward to Shelly explaining all of his thoughts on this, because I think it's going to be a fabulous discussion, especially since this group will bring things into it that I think it's going to be a very interesting discussion. Don't forget to mute, please. I see everybody's just about on mute. It will be the Q&A at the end, and please put all of your questions or your thoughts into the chat room, and we will continue later. So Shelly, it's all yours, and we cannot wait to hear what you have to say.
Thank you, Marilyn. Thank you, Julie. Welcome, everybody. I hope you all had a nice holiday. Before I start, I also want to mention that I know you watch these films, and I hope you're all watching them on Canopy. It's an incredible, really incredible service. And if you go through their films, they have a great selection. Other than what I'm doing, you really could find very recent films on there, as well as some terrific classics. So I hope you take advantage of it. And remember, I think you only get 5 selections a month. So be careful. Make sure that you could see the ones that I'm recommending. Anyway, Honeyland. It is from 2019. It's only a few years old. It was made in North Macedonia. The directors, and it was a team, Ljubomir Stefanov and Tamara Kotsveska, were working together. This was their second documentary. And originally, they was set out to do this as a short feature, not on what the subject wound up being. It was on farming in this area, on how they do rotational farming in this area. But I'll get into how they discovered Hatija and happened on this film in a moment. The film won 37 international awards, 37 major awards, 3 at Sundance, the Grand Jury Prize, a Special Jury Prize, and Cinematography for World Cinema Documentary. And it was the first documentary to ever be nominated for 2 Oscars, for Best Documentary Feature and for Best Foreign Language Feature, Best International Feature. So that's the first documentary ever to get that kind of a nomination. And to begin, Einstein once said, if the bee disappeared off the face of the earth, man would only have 4 years to live. Man would only have 4 years to live. On the other hand, after seeing the film, if people like Hussein disappeared, man might go on forever. And thinking about that character and what he does to the bees. Anyway, Einstein's words are endowed with the profound wisdom of a man who saw the world more clearly than probably the rest of us, giving us the equations that maintain what is known as the balance in the universe, much like Hatija, who also sees the world from the point of view of the bee, as it historically seems to represent that balance in the environment more than any other being on Earth. She is a hero who stands in stark contrast to those who abuse the environment. The directors were originally, as I said, commissioned to make a video about conservation efforts. Instead, they met Hatija and her mother, the lone residents. They were the only residents of this place, forgotten or overlooked by the rest of the world. They spent 3 years collecting more than 400 hours of footage and created this luminous and what I call neo-realist and environmentalist fable and an allegory of the Earth's wonders and the consequences of man's folly, revealing a stirring and heartbreaking tale of struggle and persistence. Among the basic themes that they wanted to disclose were naturally the environment, how consumerism destroys almost all natural resources completely when driven by greed, and biodiversity loss. And it's presented with the widescreen sweep of an epic. The cinematography is absolutely fantastic, visually ambitious, driven by what I call unexpected dramatic turns, as well as a sense of humor. It's a tough and tender portrait of that balance between man and nature, a revealing look at a fast disappearing way of life, and an unforgettable testament to one extraordinary woman's resilience. You'll forgive me, but the film swarms with ancient truths about parents, children, greed, respect, and the need for awareness of animals that support us. In this isolated region of the Balkans, the story begins long before humans ever lived in the region. But the narrative begins with its last two remaining inhabitants, Hadija and her mother, Nazif. Just as the worker bees spend their entire lives taking care of the queen bee, which never leaves the hive. Think about that. The queen bee never leaves the hive. Hadija has committed her own life to caring for her ailing and almost completely blind mother. It's a parallel that she stays in the hive to care for her mother. And we first see Hadija climbing up that mountainside. There's a beautiful overhead shot. We watch her climbing up where she uncovers her pride and joy, the hives of the bees that provide her with succulent honey. And it's also where we observe, without first hearing it, what is her golden rule? You take half, you leave half. You take half, you leave half. We then see that there are no paved roads, no electricity or running water. In reality, she's the last in a long line of Macedonian wild beekeepers, eking out a living farming honey in small batches to be sold in Skopje, over 20 kilometers away. And she cares for her aged ailing mother, Nazif, who also speaks for the wisdom of age. When she says things like, I feel like a tree, when speaking of her inability to move outside, or I've already seen too many winters, revealing her outlook on what's to come towards the end. And with the arrival of Hussein and his brood, you really couldn't script a better story. I mean, this is almost too good to be true, what happened here. With his rambunctious family of 7 kids and a herd of cattle, they throw Hadija's existence into total chaos. In spite of Hadija's efforts to welcome them with an open heart, and we watch her, she first sees them over the wall before they see her. She ingratiates herself to the children. She is childlike in her approach to them, playing with the kids, offering the family brandy, and even providing Hussein with knowledge of the bees. Hussein is a true capitalist. He senses an opportunity with the honey, and he disregards Hadija's golden rule in his quest for profit. And because of it, he threatens Hadija's means of survival. As Hadija points out to Hussein, if you treat your bees badly, they will eventually kill my bees. And while both he and she have the same essential problem, that of caring for their family, he is not swayed by her warnings that taking too much of the honey to sell at local markets will end up destroying the hives. Her rule of taking only half is ignored, and things begin to spiral, as we see, into chaos. He not only threatens the bees, but he also fails at taking care of his own herd. His ability to husband is dismal, if to say the least. After having devastated his calves and even trying to steal one of Hadija's precious hives from a dead tree, he simply packs up and leaves. He goes away at the end, leaving Hadija and her mother to survive alone through another winter. The film is sometimes frustrating, sometimes anger-inducing, and even sometimes humorous. When Hadija ventures into Skopje to sell her honey, she negotiates at the market. I love it when she talks to the different sellers. My honey's better than yours. Look inside, taste it. She talks about, we get information about how family wound up in this place, that they were descended from Turks, how the Turks and Albanians who did settle that area left, and they were left alone in the area. She speaks, by the way, in the film, she speaks an ancient dialect of Turkish, one which the directors did not understand. At watching her, one of the directors speaks Turkish, and he could glean a few words, but they had to ask her to try and translate because nobody really speaks that dialect. It's very interesting, but we see that she's a true negotiator. She bargains for everything, even when it comes to dealing with the bees. I love it when she buys the hair coloring at the market. She's looking at the different hair coloring, And then she says she likes the little fan, and she says, how much? And the seller says, take it. It's a present for your mother. She's going to be 85. It's a birthday present. Tell her it's a souvenir from sculpture. And she's thinking of her mother to keep her cool, and she brings it back. And later, when she is coloring her hair, I love it when she tells her mother, it's important to look good. They're the only two people there, but I love it when she's important to look good. She's very conscious of that. I love it. I love it. Look, she's, she is, to me, she's an absolutely gorgeous soul. And that's what's revealed in the film. But she even reprimands her mother at one point, because we even wonder, she says, you brought all these matchmakers. I never got a chance to get married. You brought all these matchmakers. And she finally, I love the way Nazif says, it's your father's fault. She blames it on him. It's your father's fault. And she does tell, sadly, of sisters that died. And as we go on in the story and we see all the mishaps, and we even see at a point that Hussein was reluctant with the bees, with the guy who wanted to buy all the, wanted the 200 or whatever it was kilos of honey. He's feeling reluctant because he is driven by a certain morality, yet he's also driven by opportunity. But it is so touching when she's left alone and they have to suffer through that winter, and finally, Nazif dies. It is so sad, and she's left alone with her cats, and we see her constructing that antenna the same way she saw Hussein make one, so that she could get the radio. And that is such a beautiful moment when she turns on the radio, and what's the song we hear? You are so beautiful. You are so beautiful. I mean, that's such a wonderful moment in the film, that she's just sitting there listening, probably doesn't understand the words, but she's listening to the tune. And it reveals how beautiful a soul she is. Those last scenes, and she buries her mother. She's alone to bury her mother. And those last scenes of her walking across the huge landscape. And if you remember that shot, when she's walking across that landscape, there's only one tree standing in the landscape off to the rear. And I couldn't help but thinking, she's like that tree, resilient. So no matter what's thrown at her, she'll survive. And she does. She goes up that mountain to check on her bees again. Her dog comes back, and they're just sitting there on that mountain enjoying each other as we fade out from the film. The directors, how they discovered Hadija is whereby they didn't find her first, but they found the bee holes in the rocks, and they wondered how they got there. They couldn't figure out how they got there. And then they saw Hadija coming up the mountain, and she showed them what it was all about. It was the natural habitat, and they were intrigued. So this is how she was discovered, by the bees. The bees helped her get discovered, and they started exploring her story. They met her mother, Nazif, and after 3 months of research, they decided to keep following the story. And this was done for 3 years. For 3 years, they literally lived with them, but they didn't actually live with them. I will tell you, they found the place so completely uninhabitable that the longest they could stay at one time was 5 days. So they would stay for 5 days, then they had to go back to sculpture to buy food and water that they would bring back, because there was no place for them to sleep or shower or do anything. So it really was an interesting process to make the film. And as to the question, the important question of how she came by take half and leave half. She never if you notice, she talks about she never feeds the bees, the wild bees, with sugar. which most people do. Contemporary beekeepers feed the bees with sugar. During the winters, she feeds them with their own honey because there's no pollen. There's no pollen in the winter for them to pick up on and spread. So the bees need to be fed with their own honey, or the quality of the honey they will produce will drop. The honey will not be as good if they're not eating their own honey in the winter. So they'll produce more. This principle is interesting because it's also based on the customs and traditions of her grandfather, who taught her the ancient tradition of beekeeping. He said they have to use their own honey to obtain enough energy also to be able to fly and to mate. To be able to fly and to mate. That's why they need the honey. She knows if she took all the honey, the bees would die out. She is the only person that respects this rule. For directors, this is very important. For the directors, it was very important to understand, because Tamara, one of the directors, has a 20-year background working for institutions like the United Nations. And one of the targets of the UN's Millennium Goals is equal share of benefits in all of these societies. That is, equal share between humans, the users, and in most cases, the provider, meaning nature or the animals in the area. So it's equal share whenever you're working with the environment. And under equal share, if you are using a resource provided by some species or by an ecosystem or the area, you will have to care for the future of that ecosystem. A lot of what they saw in Hadija overlapped with this principle. And you can be sure Hadija hadn't consulted the UN when she was doing this. It all becomes symbolic. The film all becomes symbolic of capitalism. And Hussein's family represents the capitalist world of wanting to take as many resources as you can so you personally will thrive, not thinking about how this will impact the next generation, not thinking how this will impact the next generation. Hadija had told the filmmakers that her biggest wish was that one day a journalist would come from some TV station and shoot her story. Walking on the mountainside, working with the honey. For her, they said this was fulfilling a dream, and she was totally open to them. At first, she was very shy to work in front of the camera, but then she opened up. In fact, Hussein and his family were much more open to working in front of the camera. They felt like they would become movie stars as a result of the filming. By the end of the shoot, they had all become very close. After, you can imagine, after 3 years, they even have footage, which they didn't put into the film, of her laughing, dancing, and singing to the crew and with the crew. They really became a family. Even Hussein and his family keep in touch with the directors. In truth, they were willing to cooperate, as I said, toward creating the storyline, because the first year of shooting, they missed Hussein when he came with the cattle and then left. So they only got him in the second and third years. And they were informed recently, or after the film, Lutfi, Hussein's wife, had an 8th child. They have 8 children now. The directors informed that even the kids, the interesting thing, even the kids survived okay, in spite, if you remember in the film, the threats of beatings from Hussein and being abused by the cattle and stung by the bees. I mean, that was not acted, that was real. But the kids managed to survive very well. Ultimately, you know, the film shines a light on what the bees have always told us. They survive by serving each other. And if they ever disappeared completely, we would only have ourselves to blame. If you happen to remember, and this is part of what this reminded me of, you have to remember the Dr. Seuss book, The Lorax. Dr. Seuss wrote a book called The Lorax. The Lorax was a creature who speaks for the trees. And Hadija speaks for the bees. And it makes one wonder if even her kind of decency is endangered, if her kind of hospitality and care of the environment and the bees is endangered. I am happy to also tell you that if you didn't find this out, that since the death of her mother, Hadija moved away from her village and now lives closer to the city. She does still have a brother who lives in the city, and she moved closer to the city in a house that was bought for her by the filmmakers, a house that has electricity and running water that they purchased for her. But yet she still goes back to the village to take care of the bees. She is still taking care of the bees. And I don't know if any of you remember, you might not, but at the 2020 Academy Awards, Hadija was there. The filmmakers brought her to Hollywood. They bought her a dress. She was made up for the affair. And you should have seen how happy she was to be sitting there in that audience with all the stars. She was absolutely a star of her own. I mean, she deserved it. She deserved it. And people applauded when they announced that she was there during the award ceremony. So that takes you through the film. And I hopefully will get it more. I mean, this is a challenging film. It's a wonderful story. But I mean, did you notice, we talk about the cinematography. A few times during the film, you see the contrails and jets flying overhead. At one point, you even see Hadija look up as a jet flies over. It's the world. It's the world out there. It's the inaccessible world that's inaccessible to her, but her world below is inaccessible to us. We're just flying over it. We don't even realize it's there. And these buildings are ancient that are left there. It's absolutely wonderful to think that, we would never know this world was there. We're 10, 30,000 feet up. And yet now we can get close to see a part of the world we would never, ever see. And Hadija, when she would come down and she built those hives to take the bees down, and the chants that she sings to the bees. Part of it is, I take half, I leave you half. I take half, I leave you half. It should be printed on a t-shirt. It's wonderful, absolutely wonderful. So now I want to open it up to you. If you have any questions, any comments, I will be glad to entertain them. So who's going to begin? Who's going to begin? Linda, thank you.
No,
Well,
it's Wendy.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Wendy?
Yeah, Wendy.
Shelly, I thought she reminded me of Mother Courage. I mean, she had this good heart, this work ethic, primitive lifestyle, and she was able to eke out a living as a beekeeper. And yet she kept doing it and doing it with a sense of humanity across the board, whether it was the bees or the animals or the newcomers that came with all their entourage. I loved the film. It was just wonderful.
Mhm.
Thank you. Thank you. Linda.
Yes, I loved it too. And that landscape is so unforgiving. It's so harsh. And I can't imagine what the winters were like there. But it's frustrating to see somebody that kind and good, willing to share. And this family comes in and the father just takes over. She loves the children. She identifies, I think, with them as friends, maybe
Yes.
even on their level. And I just couldn't get over the filming of the bees. I mean, how they did that, I don't know.
She should be hired as an instructor. She's absolutely wonderful. And there is that touching moment when, one of the sons runs away to be with her.
Yeah.
He gets fed up with his father. If you remember, she takes him up into the mountain to show him how she's caring for the bees. And then they stay overnight in a cave. And she says to him, if I had gotten married, I would have a son like you. I would have a son, and you see it just look off in the distance, forlornly, and you get the feeling, this is what I miss. So she's at times childlike. We see her sitting in a swing. There are moments where she's childlike, but she's also very aware of her environment. She's aware of what's going on, how she treats her mother, constantly fixing her eye, feeding her. I mean, she takes on so much responsibility. It's incredible. And this is all real. I mean, this is a technique. There are certain documentary techniques. This is called fly on the wall. Should be called bee on the wall, but it's called fly on the wall. That with the fly on the wall that gets to watch human behavior. And then it switches into halfway through what we call cinema verite, which is why the camera gets a little jerky as opposed to a stationary camera, which we see at the beginning. But it's no narration. Sometimes in documentary, you have a narrator. This is not narration. This is, straight fly on the wall approach, a truthful approach, and it captures it, very beautifully. But we really do, as I said, see into her soul. So thank you, Linda. Jackie.
I thought it was interesting, and you may know more about this. You touched base on it. I read an article about it that said that what you said, none of them spoke the language. And so when they were trying to put together the movie, they actually did the best they could to try to insert language that they thought would fit. And when they finally did find somebody that could translate it, they were almost dead on with everything just by the emotional and what they viewed instead of what they understood. I thought that was really interesting to read that.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because, it really talks about human communication. It's another study. It's almost another revealing thing about the film, the way people communicate. I mean, we don't see the crew. We don't know how many. There were only like 4 or 5 of them, by the way. There was a sound person. There was one of the directors was the cinematographer. There was the other director. And that's basically it. And probably what we call a gaffer who does everything else. Anyway, it's so you have this sort of feeling of how do they communicate with this woman, and it gets at the heart of expression. And yes, they did insert, they did write what they felt was being said. And they were dead on when they did find someone. So thank you for that, for contributing that. Marilyn.
Yeah, I saw her as a survivor. And to me, that the hair color was very significant because this is a woman that saw tomorrow, because you don't color your hair unless you want to be good tomorrow. So I really respected her, and gentle, but strong. So and of course, loved the movie. So thank you for the choice.
Thank you, Marilyn. That's so poetic. The idea of she saw tomorrow, and you don't do your hair unless you're looking for tomorrow. And that's, that's great. That's great. I love that. I love that the way you express that. Thank you. Thank you. Marilyn London. You got to unmute, Marilyn.
Forgot.
There you go.
Okay. 2 things. Number 1, in the chat, what is Shelly's contact information, is email, and they also several times, because there was a technical problem, his contact information, if you want to register to get all of the information from him, go into the chat. It is there for you today. Regarding the film, I agree with Wendy when she talked about the work ethic. I thought that they did an amazing job contrasting the work ethic between her, which she obviously believed in deferred gratification, as opposed to this new family that moved next door who wanted instant gratification. And I think they were saying a lot about not just them, but a lot of other cultures, communities, countries, where we are in life. And I think the work ethic that Wendy brought up was really important.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and also, you're making me think about that family. They were a hive of their own. The way he says, if you notice, he says to the guy while they're sitting in the truck, he says, "Kids, I got seven. I got seven." And he says, "You got to have a lot of kids." And the way he treats them and ignores them, you're wondering why he's saying that. But it's they just proliferate. He was just proliferating. But what they did to the cattle, and he gets mad. You're ignoring the calves; they're all dying. And you saw when they leave at the end, there's not that many left. Well, he does sell off a great deal. I mean, that's what he's in the business of, is moving cattle for someone through the mountains. Somebody brought up in the chat, is there any footage of Adisha attending the Hollywood Awards? I don't know. You'd have to go maybe on YouTube, and if you put in her name, Adisha Muratova, it might come up. I have no idea. I just remember from when I saw it. Linda?
Kelly, I think the reason they have so many children in this case is that's the workforce. More children, more workers.
Yeah, probably. To support them. Mel.
Yeah, I just had two comments. One, even though I knew it was a documentary, I couldn't believe it. I thought this was a story that was made up, and the other thing, this is the classic story of good versus evil.
Yeah.
And thank God, good won.
That's it. No, it's a great comment because there's a famous director, Jean-Luc Godard, who always said the best compliment you could pay to a documentary is that it looks like a narrative feature. And the best compliment you could pay to a narrative feature is that it looks like a documentary. That the actors aren't acting, and here it looks like because you couldn't make this up, but it seems so strange. It seems stranger than the truth. I mean, the way this was set, where it was set, and the behavior. I mean, it looked like it was scripted. Thank you, Mel. Who else? Anybody else out there?
Shelly, I have a question.
Yeah, Wendy.
Why did he want a female calf rather than a male calf? When there was a delivery,
he didn't want a male calf. In fact, one of the boys comments, I hope it's not a male. Right. They wanted females.
No.
Because females will keep giving more birth.
Okay, all right. I was confused.
You only need one male for the herd.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's why. It's continuation. Anybody else? Nobody? Wow.
Well, I can tell you this was probably one of the most insightful, interesting, fabulous films I've ever seen, and I'm going to watch it again because there was so much depth, just so much. Thank you for suggesting that film.
Oh, my pleasure. It's not often that I do a documentary, and once in a while one hits me that it's the filmmaking. I often talk about neorealism, and this is a perfect example of if it was scripted, of neorealism. It feels like a neorealist film, shot on location. There's no real lighting to speak of, and especially in that house, they're working with candlelight. All of these things, and it's real people. It's in many ways it's almost a hybrid, because Jackie was saying that she read, they were approximating what she was saying. So you're sort of wandering off documentary territory when you do that, expressing what you think they're feeling or saying, which was interesting. So it goes to all of those things, and it comes across as a great fable. Yeah, Linda.
Yeah, I love the silhouette shots with her and the dog. They were all alone, and you get the silhouette.
Yeah, it was beautiful. Oh, the shooting was absolutely marvelous. The landscape, the village, within the house. When Hadija, after her mother passes away, she's left with the cats, and those two little cats were sitting there actually listening to her. They were attentive. All of these little touches. There's not much detail, but what detail there is very interesting. As I said, and as some of you pointed out, the hair coloring, the fan, all these little things meant so much in that world. Anybody else? Marilyn?
Yeah.
Rosh?
Yes, thank you. I also thought it was very interesting to see human nature. They had the 7 children, and they were brought up in a very harsh environment, and they were taught, like the mother was pushing this truck. I mean, the kids were taught since the time they were little to be strong and to be almost wild. But there was one little boy, and I remember him, he was crying because he did not want to participate in anything that was as harsh. So there was, I thought, a tremendous insight just into, you can just teach someone so much, but his human nature just could not take that type of
treatment.
harsh again, for lack of another.
Yeah. Oh, sure. I mean, the film, it reveals it's filled with humanity, and it reveals, the human condition from the family point of view, from Hadija's point of view. We see all of this. These are real human beings. This is what makes that much more powerful. These are real people, and we're looking at real people on the other side of the world with the same desires, the same wants, the same feelings as we modern people have. So humans don't change that much. They're just impacted by what goes on around them. Anybody? You, Marilyn London?
I don't know, I might not have been paying attention. Did you discuss about the difference in the way people looked at materialism? Because, I mean, the heroine, she was so unmaterialistic and had such depth to her. And the neighbors, who are the contrast, were so materialistic and had no depth. It was like, was he trying to say something?
Well, I think that what they were getting at was, first of all, Hadija's worldview was basically where they live and traveling into sculpture. Now, there's a great shot when she's on the train going to sculpture. Did you notice the person sitting next to her? It was a young guy with a mohawk haircut.
Yes.
In green. I mean, that right there. There's the world right there. And she doesn't even give it a second thought. She looks over, she doesn't even think about it. So her worldview is an innocent one. And, she doesn't have much money. And so therefore, she doesn't think about, and has no electricity. So a TV is, even if she's never seen one, is out of the question. All of these comforts are totally unrealistic to her. It's not in her worldview. Whereas these people, they rotate. They go, they bring the cattle up at part of the year, then they leave. Now, this was the first time she had apparently seen them the year before. They had apparently come and they missed her when they first started shooting Hadija. And then they came back the second year, and that's when they asked them to be in the film. So yes, they were materialistic, and you could see the T-shirts the kids wore. They were very into the real world, listening to the radio. They were getting the reports from Sculpture Radio. So they were very, and that's that they were the typical consumers of the area. And this was one of the themes, was consumerism, and what consumerism does. If you're not aware, here she reaches out and she teaches them the importance of all of this, and he disregards it. He just disregards it.
He doesn't wanna-
She was giving him actually the hint to success, and he disregarded it. He disregarded it. So interesting that's a great question though about that, modernity or consumerism versus a person like her. Susan Mann.
Hi. What I found interesting was in Macedonia and in northern Greece, which is also Macedonia, but it's Greek Macedonia. They settled a dispute there in 2018, the United Nations. And that's how we got the Republic of Macedonia. But throughout the region and the Middle East, you often see in rural areas women in the fields, but the man, it's so unlike, this film is so unlike that other film we saw. Remember, what was the name of it? The women on the island that got the men went off to sea.
The same. Yeah.
Oh, Little London, Little England.
Yes. The way of life is just very different. And, these are the poorest of the poor. And they often, those cultures often have many, many children because they figure they'll die young and they do want a workforce, if they're going to be in the field.
Yes, you're right on so many levels. The area where they were working was so far away from everything else. I mean, this is up in the mountainous area. Nobody lives there except Hadija and her mother, and therefore it's basically untouched. And the fact is, it was an ancient place, and as I said, it was forcibly settled by Turks and Albanians a long time ago, and then they just left. They just picked up and went at some point, and the Hadija's family, the Muratovas, were probably just decided to stay. Her grandfather was a beekeeper, so this was handed down to her. And they
were both Turkish.
They were both Turkish. Yeah, they were the Hussein's family was also Turkish. You notice he was putting a roof on the house, and they made a remark about whose house it was. So it probably was someone he knew that let him use the house during the summer when he brought the cattle up. That's what we can assume. But thank you. Jackie? You got to unmute, Jackie.
Thought I did. I think we need to be a little bit careful too when we crucify them for saying that they only wanted to have kids for workers' sake. I mean, in areas like that, just like years ago, contraceptives were not really and are not really that available, and they tend to be expensive. So yes, the kids were a great workforce. Just like years ago, most of our grandparents or great grandparents probably had 6 or 8 or 10 or 12 kids. Right. That's part of it too. So yes, they were more materialistic than her for sure, but they were also trying to support those kids. And before we just say that they did this just to have kids, we need to kind of think about the fact that there was a reason partly for that.
Yeah, and he didn't, sometimes they don't expect they're always going to get pregnant. So she just kept getting pregnant. But she was fertile. The fact is also, and I did mention it, is there's also what we get out of it is, both Hadija and Hussein have the same problem, but they deal with it differently. They're supporting a family. She's got a small family unit, her mother and her, but she has to worry about it. And he does have to support a family. He has to find the means to support everybody, even though he puts them to work. He still has to, herding the cattle. And he saw the bees, when he saw what Hadija was doing, and but they kept eating up the profits. I mean, if you saw it during the course of the film, his friend and he are constantly eating up all the honeycombs. which was a testament to Hadija and the bees that she had. And you also saw how when he took all the frames out of the hive that they had, his bees were leaving and then killing her bees. They went in and literally killed her bees because they wanted to take over that hive. It was terrible. You in fact saw one bee fighting another and killing it and leaving it there. This was, this again was basically a metaphor for what goes on. It's a metaphor for humanity in many ways, which was interesting. But we do have to be aware. We've heard reports over the last few years about the bees, and we have to worry about them becoming extinct. I mean, they are a very big part of the balance of nature as pollinators, as creating as a source of food. They're very important in the chain, in the food chain, in the life chain, in the environment chain. They are extremely important. Extremely important. Anybody else? Yes, Mel.
I just want to make the point. Khadija points out that Hussein's bees are going to kill her bees. And basically, again, it's the same thing. Hussein is really going to kill Khadija's type of life. So it's the bees and the people.
Good comment. Good comment. By putting her in peril, he's putting her, that survival. He's threatening that survival, and he's also threatening the survival of. She is one of the last. There are still some beekeepers, not like her. There are still some older type beekeepers left in Europe, but she is the last of her breed, and hopefully that she is teaching others how to do this, how to continue what she's doing. It would be a shame not to. It would be a shame not to. Anybody else? Thank you, Wendy. Yes, she'll always remember how a beehive looks now and difficulty of extracting honey, which is also used with tea. Did you notice that she didn't wear any protective clothing?
No,
She does have the face net, but she didn't wear any gloves. She let the bees fly all over her. It's as if they knew her. You got the feeling the bees knew her. She was the queen bee. She was the queen bee. And they look forward to her coming.
I have a question.
Nora?
The family that came, they knew they were being filmed, but they still like destroyed her beehives and they still stole her bees. I mean, how did that work?
They were. Well, what they were doing were they have to, it's very difficult, especially when you're shooting a documentary. They certainly didn't sit down with them and say, now here's the script. They're not actors. What they told them was, you go on with your lives and forget the cameras here. It's a difficult thing to do. But after a while, after doing it for a while, they do become unconscious of the camera. It's not a big camera. It's not like a Hollywood production. It's a small camera that they're working with. And they're back in a distance and they just go on with their behavior. They told them, we're just here to film your behavior. We're just here to watch you live. We're here to watch you live. And yes, the kids, when the cattle is kicking them around and he's pulling the one calf out of the mother, it's all real. It's all the way they behave. And when they go in and they cut down Hadija's beehive from that dead tree, that's real. They didn't tell them, why don't you do this? They came up with this on their own. And Hadija is not even present when this is going on. She finds out about it later. And they didn't go and tell her, by the way, they cut down. She finds this out on her own. They really try to stay out of the action.
No,
it's difficult.
Now, I'm sure they were paid because they were money conscious. So did they pay them at the end of the movie so they wouldn't change their behavior?
Yeah, they don't, if they ask for money, they're gonna keep them out of the film. They don't want it because they don't want them to have the profit motive of being filmed. They're being told, we're going to film you. And in the end, they may provide them with things other than money. They may provide them with a new truck. They may provide the kids with clothes. You know, there are all different kinds of payments. Hadijah got a house, you know, and they saw that she could be supported. You know, certainly they took care of her, and they probably still are taking care of her. I have a feeling. She's a special person that deserves that. So, you know, they are conscious of certain things. Jackie, do you have a comment on that? You got to unmute again, Jackie.
I did. Just quick on that. That article that I read said they didn't buy her anything at all until they bought it with the winnings from their prizes from their awards. If what I'm saying is making sense. They didn't just out and out buy it for all the award money is what they used.
Yeah, they can't. They don't have a budget for it, you know, and they certainly don't make any money. I mean, believe it or not, the film made about $1.5 million. And, you know, and that's ticket sales. $1.5 million ticket sales is not profit. The film wasn't profitable. You know, going into a documentary is not a profitable endeavor. Remember, they were sponsored. There was a Swiss company that originally sponsored them going in to shoot it. There was the Macedonian Film Board. There's a number of film boards that put up money, and then if they can get sponsors to put in things as well. And that's where it comes from, Nora, is they take it out of that. And in this case, as Jackie said, she read that they took it out of the festival winnings. Linda?
Because we're talking about these things, I was just wondering, they were there for such a long time. Does a cameraman have to be there all the time, or can they set the camera up in such a way that they don't have to be there? It just takes footage and then they can cut.
Not in this case. Not in this case. They have to be there. That's why it was very arduous for them. They would come in for at most 5 days to film, and then they had to leave. They had to go back to sculpture, you know, to replenish themselves. But no, this kind of filmmaking requires the cameraman to be there because, first of all, you got people moving around, so you can't set up a camera and people can walk out of the frame. I mean, it just, you know, it becomes total chaos. So yeah, you have to have a cameraman for this kind of work. Good question, Jackie.
Nope, sorry, didn't put my hand down. Apologize, Shelly.
Oh no, that's okay. That's okay. Thanks. Marilyn Rush.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that in terms of that family, I don't think that they were acting anything. I think that that's just who they are. They really had low standards, and they justified those standards. This was just them.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the only time, you know, it's funny, the three of you, you know, really involved in this conversation is that, as I said, you know, there was a moment where Hussein was not looking happy when the guy was telling him, you got to get all the honey, you got to take all the stuff out, I need all this honey. And he was not looking happy. In truth, he was caught up in a bit of a moral conflict. He did sort of listen to Hadijah up to a point. I think that was remorse, you know, for what he had done before. You know, he was beginning to feel some kind of remorse over destroying his own hives and you know, and then affecting Hadijah's hives. So. Okay. You know, we don't like Hussein because, you know, it's pure consumerism. You know, oops, did I go out? Am I still there?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's pure consumerism. And that's what they're trying to balance this out with. They're trying to provide a balance between these two worlds within the film. So there you go. I see chat comments. We say characters born in Interesting comment. Characters born and Hadisha exemplifies being a true human being. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. The film is such a microcosm of international relations today. Yes, it is. She wanted to negotiate. He bullied and killed her bees. Yeah, definitely, definitely. Okay, this was great. This was great. I thank you all for staying in here. Now, we will be back in June, correct, Marilyn? I
Yes,
think we have one more left.
yes.
We have one film left on May 11th, and I look forward to seeing you. The film I love this film. It's an Academy Award nominee from 2004. Again, as I said, this whole theme we've been going through is Academy Award nominated films and winning films. And this was a crowd pleaser from 2004, As It Is in Heaven, or As in Heaven. They keep mixing up the title wherever it is, but the true title that they put on the poster was As It Is in Heaven. Linda, were you the one that pointed it out to me? I don't remember. Somebody wrote me and pointed it out. It's As It Is in Heaven, because I have As in Heaven in my breakdown. But anyway, it's became an international sensation. It's a comedy, a drama, and music with music. It's about a man named Daniel, a successful international conductor who suddenly interrupts his career and returns to his home he lived in for a short time as a little boy. He goes back to the village in a place called Norrland, the north of Sweden. And he's asked to come and listen when the churchgoers ask him to come and listen to their choir. He can't say no. And from that moment, nothing in the village is quite the same again. The choir will develop and grow. He makes friends and enemies and discovers what was missing in his life. It's a deeply felt film, and it's just terrific. It's terrifically acted. It's a lot of fun. It also gets into a lot of issues, a lot of domestic and social issues which are relevant around the world. So I hope you enjoy it. I hope I'll see you on May 11th. In the meantime, happy Mother's Day.
Thank you.
Or is Mother's Day after that? I don't know, but have a happy Mother's Day. I'll look forward to seeing you on the 11th. Thank you. Thank